Hello everyone, welcome to Code Overdose. In the previous part, we learned how to implement CRUD functionality in a Blazor Web App for a real project. If you haven't watched it yet, you can find the link in the description. In this video, I will show you how to implement authentication and role-based authorization in a Blazor Web App frontend and a backend web API using JWT tokens. Before we start, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit the bell so you don't miss any of my new videos. Now, let's get started. Here is how the flow works. First, we have a login form in the front end that sends a request to the backend web API to obtain a JSON web token. The token is then stored in local storage. In the UI, we use the AuthenticationStateProvider to manage authorization and show or hide components based on roles. It retrieves the token from local storage. Every time we make an API call to the backend, we retrieve the token from local storage, add it to the header, and send it to the backend API. The backend receives the token in the header and validates it. That's the flow. Now let's implement it. First, we will create the API for login. Return JSON web token. Go to API service. Create an empty API controller. Name auth controller. We need to define some model for it. Let's go to model library. Add a class named login model. Have properties, string username, and string password. Set required for them. Then add another class named login response model. Have properties string token and long token expired. Then create a HTTP post, have action, name is login, and define function login, allow to pass login model and return login response model. For simplicity, I will allow username and password is admin. Then call the function generate JWT token to get the token, and return login response model. Let's define function generate JWT token. Define an array claim, have claim type name, and claim type role. Here we need to get the JWT secret key from app setting. Let's inject iConfiguration by using primary constructor, then get value JWT secret. Then let's create the secret in app setting. Define JWT. Have secret is a random string but should be long enough. Then encoding the secret and using symmetric security key to create a JWT key. Then create credentials by using signing credentials and HEMAC 256 algorithms. Then create object token by using JWT security token. Have issuer, audience, claims, and expires is 1 hour from UTC now, and set the signing credentials. Finally, return the token string by using JWT security token handler to write the token. Next, we will add the authentication service in the program file. Go to program.cs. Use the builder service to add authentication. Here, we need to add a package to use JWT. Add the package. Search for bearer JWT. And you will see the package, Authentication JWT Bearer. Let's install it. Then, you can use JWT bearer defaults, authentication schema, and using add bearer token, have options to define the token validation parameters, including validate issuer, validate audience, validate lifetime, and validate issuer signing key. Set valid issuer and valid audience. Then get the JWT secret from app settings and set issuer signing key. With this configuration, the Web API will use it to validate the JSON web token. Then add authorization, and then call middleware use authentication and use authorization. Then, in product controller, I will add an authorize attribute. Now, let's run the app to check the authentication and authorization in the backend API. Open Swagger. I will execute the API to get the list of products. Good, it returns a 401 unauthorized. Now let's get the token and send it along with the request. Execute the API login with the username and password. Now we have the token string, but we need some configuration to have a place to put the token in Swagger. Go to Program again, and in Add Swagger Gen, set an option. Add security definition, with type bearer, configured to put it in the header, type API key. Then, add security requirement, with reference type as security schema. Now, let's run it again. You can see we now have a place to put the token. Execute login again to get the token. Copy the token. Then open Authorize, input bearer with a space, then paste the token. Then, let's get the list of products again. Great, it returns success 200, and we have the list of products in the body. So now we're done configuring JWT in the backend web API. The backend can now return the token in API login and automatically validate the token in the header when there is any request to the APIs that have the authorize attribute. Now we will handle the front end. Let's create a login form first. In the Pages folder, add a new folder named Login. Then add a Razor component named Login. Set the root to login. This page will not use the default layout, so we will create an empty layout to use for the login page. In the Layout folder, create a Razor component named Empty Layout. It should inherit Layout component base and just show the body. Now we can use Layout is Empty Layout. Define the login model. Create an edit form with the model as login model. And add an input text for the username, another input text for the password, and a button to submit. Set onValid Submit to the function handleLogin. In the function handleLogin, We will make an API call to auth login to get the token. Don't forget to inject the API client. If it returns the token, we will use AuthenticationStateProvider to save the token and set the auth state on the front end by creating a custom authentication state provider. We will create it soon, but when the login is complete, the user should navigate to the home page. Next, let's create the custom authentication state provider. In Blazor Web, create a folder named Authentication, then create a class Custom Auth State Provider. It should inherit Authentication State Provider and implement the abstract class getAuthenticationStateAsync. We do not define it in a hurry. Now we need a function to save the token to local storage and create an authentication state. So let's define a function named markUser as authenticated. Allow passing the token to save it to local storage. Let's inject protected local storage by the primary constructor. Then we can use local storage set async. Set the name as authToken. Then create a function to get claims identity by reading from the token. Create JWT Security Token Handler. Here we should install the JWT package. Search bearer JWT again. Then install Authentication JWT bearer. Using the package. And read the JWT token. Get claims. Then return claims identity. Now we can create claims principal by using claims identity. Then call the function notify authentication state changed and pass into it authentication state. Now we can use it in the login component. Inject authentication state provider. Attention here, we don't inject custom auth state provider because Blazor only works with the base authentication state provider. So here we will inject authentication state provider and cast it to our custom implementation. To be able to use the function markUser as authenticated and pass into it the token. Next, we will add scope for our custom auth state provider. Go to Program. Add scope service of base class with implemented custom class. Then add service authentication. And add cascading authentication state. Then app use authentication and app use authorization. Okay, let's run the project to test the login page now. It shows the home page. I will go to the login page. We need some padding here. I will set some padding for the login form. Then hot reload it. It looks better now. I will input admin for both username and password to be able to get the token. Click Login. Great, we go to the home page. Let's check the local storage now. Open DevTools. In the Application tab, we have local storage. We have auth token here, so the token is now already in local storage. But how does Authentication State Provider work? I will create a message adjacent to the About link to show if the user is authorized. Let's go to Main Layout. we can remove the About link, then use Authorize view. And if the user is authorized, just show Hello Username. And if the user is not authorized, show the text Not Authorized. These tags will connect to AuthenticationStateProvider to check if the user is authorized or not. Let's run it now. Oops! We got an error here because the Authorize view tag will call getAuthenticationState function to check if the user is authorized or not. Let's define this function. First, get the token from local storage. If the token is null, create an empty claims identity, else get claims identity from the token, then create claims principal. Finally, return authentication state. Now let's run it again. Another error occurs when we try to access local storage. Let's go to App Razor. Change the render mode to Interactive Server Render Mode with pre-render set to false for both head outlet and roots. We fix this because if pre-render is true, the UI will be rendered the first time on the server, and it cannot access local storage because local storage is only on the client side. And one thing in routes.razor, we need to change route view to authorize route view. Now let's run it again. Great! We have the hello text here. Next, we will create the logout feature. In the login folder, create a component named logout. Set the root to logout. Override the uninitialized async function, and inject AuthenticationStateProvider. Here we need a function to remove the token from local storage and set the state provider to default. Go to Custom Auth State Provider. Define a function mark user as logged out. In this function, delete the token from local storage. Then create an empty claims identity. Create a claims principal, and call Notify Authentication State Changed with Authentication State. Now we can call mark user as logged out. After logout, the user should navigate to the login page. Then go to Main Layout and create a logout button, setting the URL to logout. Now let's run the project. Click Logout, and we will be redirected to the login page. Log in again, and we will go to the home page. And now what happens when I go to the product list? It shows the error 401 unauthorized, because when we call the API to the backend, we still do not include the token in the header of our request. So let's go to the API client. Define a function named setAuthorizeHeader. Then inject protected local storage, and in that function, get the token from local storage. If we have the token, add default request headers with authorize as bearer token. Then, in each function that makes the API call to the backend, call that function to ensure the token is included in the header of the request. Okay, let's run the project to check it. go to the product list. Great, it shows the list now. Let's try to create a new product. Wonderful. So the backend receives the token in the header, automatically validates it, and returns the data when the token is valid. Next, we will find out how to implement role-based authorization for both the front-end and back-end. We will start with the front-end. I will take an example where only the user with the admin role can see the Delete Product button. Let's go to the product list, and in the Delete button, we will use the Authorize view component, specifying the role as admin. If the user is authorized with the admin role, let's show the Delete button. The admin account I made already has the admin role, so I will set up another account with the username user and the password user. This account will have the role of user. Now let's run the app. With the account as admin, go to the product list, and we will still see the Delete button. Click to log out and log in with the user account. Then go to the product list. The Delete button is now not showing because this account doesn't have the admin role. But now, if I want only the admin role to access this page, how do I do that? Let's go to the product list. Declare an attribute named Authorize, with roles as admin and run the project again. With the user account, go to the product list, and you will see Not Authorized. Here, we can set multiple roles to see this page. Let's add the user role, then restart the app. Now we can see the product list with the role as user. With the backend, we can set the role-based authorization with the Authorize attribute like we just did. Go to Product Controller. Set the role as admin and run the project. Go to the product list with the user account. We will get the error 403 forbidden, because the role the user has does not have permission to retrieve the data of the API in the product controller. Now, let's go to Product Controller. Add the role to the user, then reload it. That account will have the permission. Go back to the home page and go to the product list. It shows the list again. So in this video, we learn how to implement authentication and role-based authorization in Blazor and Web API using JWT. In the next video, I will show you how to check if a token has expired and use a refresh token to get a new access token. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of my new videos. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.